Hello everyone, good afternoon. I again welcome you in this continuing series of KSG's Success Carnival. Today on this occasion, I would like to quote a wonderful line from the book The Alchemist, which says that when you want something, all the universe conspires to help you to achieve it. This is probably improvised version of what शाहरुख said in one of his movie. अगर आप किसी चीज को शिद्दत से चाहते हैं तो पूरी कायनात उसे तुमसे मिलाने की कोशिश में लग जाती है. And ultimately, our guests for this session are very well suited here. Today we have Sanjita, All India Rank 10. She belongs to Rourkela, the steel city, and eventually she worked as an engineer in Rourkela steel plant. Also our second guest, Muskan, All India Rank 87, coming from the most beautiful Solan Valley of Himachal Pradesh. She is a commerce graduate from Chandigarh. Also in our panel today we have Dr. Khan sir and Anshul sir. So without wasting any time, I would like to hand over the screen to Khan sir. Over to you, sir.
Hi everybody, and let me begin by first thanking the two beautiful speakers for the evening and the young officer, our future of the nation. And I would like to explain the purpose for which that we are doing it here. See, they both have become IAS officers of the country, and they have got those 3 coveted letters after their name, decorated very soon. But then there's just not one way to reach the same destination. There are several ways that they have traveled. In fact, the students who are listening to this, I would like to understand and appreciate that there can be multiple ways to reach the same destination. Of course, destination remains same. The directions they travel is different. And this direction is continuously evolving. And my experience of the field has shown me that one must always try and see as to what works at a given point in time in this sector, and keeping that particular aspect in mind, what I've tried doing is that always like to interact and listen to them and then learn from them to really understand as to how the whole thing is unfolding, because it is a continuous process and UPSC is continuously evolving. The things which are working now, probably they were not working about 10 years ago, not 20 years ago, or probably not 10 years later. So here I would like all the students who are giving examination, this is a beautiful specimen of what has worked this year, what is working now. So please try and gather every single pearl of wisdom which is coming from them at this stage to really internalize them, use them, because it has worked. It has worked. And I think it's not only for you as students, it's it's learning for me as a teacher also at this stage. And we have got 2 professionals emeritus sitting in front of us who are going to guide not only you but guide me also for my future course of evolution in the field. I would like to get back to Ruchi and then in fact probably collect as many pearls as possible. Thank you very much once again from my side.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words. Now I would like to hand over the screen to Anshul sir to take it further. Over to you, Anshul sir.
Well, thank you so much, Ruchi ma'am. And first of all, I want to thank Sanjita, Miss Sanjita and Miss Muskan. And apart from thanking, I want to congratulate them because I read somewhere, especially of Miss Sanjita, that her childhood dream was to become a collector. So within 4-5 years, definitely you will going to be a collector of some district. I don't know which state. I hope you will get Odisha. And similarly, Muskan, I have been to your place, Solan, wonderful place. And congratulations from my side to getting such a wonderful feat in your first attempt. That is very important. So I would like to start my discussion with the pattern of the examination. I mean, how you evolved this process. You know, you started your journey and there are 3 stages. So what was your strategy while tackling each and every stage? So we'll move in that direction. And I'll be posing you some questions and I'm expecting some answers so that our viewers will be getting some benefit from your insights and valuable words. So first of all, I want to say that prelims these days are becoming very difficult. So what is your take, Ms. Sanjita? Like prelims is more difficult for you or mains? What is your take on this?
I'll not differentiate that this is more difficult and this is not. They're equally important and difficult because one is subjective and one is objective. For prelims, I'll say that it took me, it's my 5th attempt that I cracked it. The first 3 attempts, I could not even qualify prelims. So all the attempts, the first 2 attempts were given when I did not understand what UPSC exactly is. The 3rd attempt, I realized my mistake was revision, lack of revision. The 4th attempt, I worked on that. So how I prepared for prelims was, basics has to be very strong. During my job, which I did from 2013 to 2018, the only thing I worked upon a lot was building my basics, be it polity, be it geography, be it history. The NCERTs, I do not even remember, I have lost count of how many times I have revised the NCERT. So it worked for me because that is how you are able to recollect and eliminate. Because in prelims, we use that method that if you don't know the answer, at least if you can eliminate, then you can reach the answer. So that is what I think worked for me.
Coming to you, Muskan, because it was your first attempt, so only single experience of giving prelims, and thank God you gave only first time. So I think that there should be a proper balance between the conventional issues in the prelims and the contemporary issues. Very rightly pointed out by Sangeeta, that she read NCERTs umpteen number of times. She don't even remember how many times. So what is your take? How you balance that approach of moving into the contemporary issues while not losing out? Because I have seen many aspirants, they focus more on the current affairs and they lose their track with the conventional part, that is the NCERTs and the basic as far as the every subject, be it polity, geography, economy and history. So what is your take, Muskan, on this?
So my strategy was very simple. I analyzed some of the past year question papers and I realized that we can't totally rely on the static portion or the current affairs. So I gave equal importance to both of them. What I did was I started with my basics, as ma'am also said. I started with the NCERTs, and only when I was very much clear with the NCERTs, like reading them twice or thrice, then only I moved to the standard books. So that was my basic strategy all along.
Okay, you moved letter by letter, I mean step by step. Sangeeta, I want to ask you one thing about the prelims, that there are many institutional reports that used to come into the newspaper and they are hitting the Hindu and the Indian Express almost every month. Some reports are coming. So how do you gauge your preparation while so much facts and figures? Because ultimately you can use those facts and figures in your mains answer writing also. Because when you put those facts and figures in your answer, it will give a comprehensive answer to the examiner. So how you, differentiate between, like, this report is used, you prepared some notes or you charted out something to find out, okay, this is important for me and I can use this.
I have a very basic strategy I wanted to show actually. I have this syllabus paper, it's in tatters now. So what I do is, syllabus, every word is underlined and I prepare notes, or I have bookmark sites, digital notes, handwritten notes, whatever it is. Every part has I must have 2-3 pages on that. So everything related to it. So you shouldn't be overwhelmed with the facts, the institutional, the reports which are coming out. They should be relevant. That is which comes through learning. That slowly you have to understand, is the report relevant or not. As we say, we always talk about ARC report, which we usually quote in many of the answers. So there also we have to find out which is relevant, which is not. As we talk about women, we should have gender gap report. That number should be there with us. Gender inequality report, that should be there with us. So that is how we should be able to link it, and that is how we should be able to produce it. It should be relevant in the mains answer. It should not be like we just put it for the sake of putting and want to show facts.
Fair enough. Muskan, I want to ask that the flagship schemes launched by the governments plays a very pivotal role in the prelims, because you will find certain questions. I believe there may be questions on single digit, sometimes double digit, with related to the schemes. So there are multiple schemes. I say, if you like to see that there are multiple ministries with the government of India, and like pencil scheme was there, or some other schemes, like recently Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. So how you manage with such big amount of schemes? and using them in your exam. Because see what Sanjita said, that you have to go by the syllabus. I totally agree with that.
Yes.
But the schemes are, you can't say that this scheme is not important or this is a flagship scheme, so I should put more focus on it.
So what I did was, for the schemes, I referred to the schemes directly from the website of the government. I would look at all the flagship schemes from each of the websites. Suppose from the Women and Child Development Department. So I logged on to the website and saw what are the flagship schemes and what is the progress of those schemes, and I would make notes upon that. That's how I prepared on the schemes part. And basically I prepared like 4 to 5 schemes in each of like science and technology, education, which I can use in my answer writing. For the prelims part, I prepared for the schemes by referring to the mock test, like which schemes are frequently asked, and that way I prepared for those.
Okay, so this is a common question to both of you. Like, current affairs plays a very important role. So what you referred, I mean, only newspaper or certain other elements or some compilation, like what we give in KSG is Current Connect to our students and My Notes. These are the two areas which we try to cover the current affairs comprehensively. So what was your strategy? Both of you, the question I'm putting forward is like how you dealt with the big heap of current affairs, because newspaper is one thing which I must suggest to everyone that you should not miss even after becoming an IS.
For me to add what Muskan said, the schemes question, the Vikaspedia, I find it very relevant in that everything is given at one point, so people can use it when you, as she said, about health, education. So that is a very good website, so that can be used. For current affairs, which you said, I am an ardent reader of Hindu. Nothing can ever replace it. So I always followed that. And people have to understand that when certain organizations, imagine National Investigation Agency is in news. So I used to make some short notes on that specific topic. Then second is, there are many websites I used to follow on internet where prelims related current affairs was there. So half an hour daily I used to follow any such website. Then there are many current affairs material which is available in the market. I used to follow 2 only. I did not overwhelm myself with every and other things which is available, because some of the time it gets repetitive. So I used to follow that. And at the end, quiz. I used to solve many quizzes online. 1 hour daily was devoted to solving quizzes, because that's how you remember things more easily. So that is how we dealt with current affairs on daily basis.
What is your take on this, Muskan?
So for me, newspaper was kind of non-negotiable. I would start my day by reading the newspaper itself, and then secondly, I referred to the consolidated magazines which are available for all year round. So I revised them thoroughly before appearing in prelims as well as mains. And thirdly, I solved daily quizzes which are available. Like there are these short quizzes having like 10 to 12 questions daily. So that would help me in revising current affairs on a daily basis. That was my strategy. I kept my resources for current affairs really limited. I relied on revision, like revising again and again.
Yeah, I think this is a very good advice to all the listeners who are preparing for UPSC, because I have seen many aspirants, they are hunting for material, searching for many materials or many websites or many newspaper, and at the end of the day cannot revise it. So multiple revision is one key that both of our toppers said. Now coming to the gigantic part of the UPSC, and that I think the most selective part, because ultimately 80% of your selection depends upon how you write. And that is what you are being tested in the mains examination. 1750 marks war is there. I must say it a war, because it is a war, and you have to write very good, because as many a time Dr. Khan used to say that whenever you clear the prelims, you are on equal footing with each other. Now how better you present yourself, that is the case for you. So I would ask you, like, what kind of ingredients are required for an answer, good answer? How you frame your answer, you weave your answer?
When I started answer writing tests, I was very, very, very poor. I should make it very clear. My introductions, I am an ICSE student, so I have a habit of writing too much. My introductions would be like 7 to 8 lines. And how you improve upon that is, whatever the question is, directly taking the keyword and writing an introduction of 2-3 lines. That is what I learned through my whole process of test series writing. That is my improvement, and it happened really at the later stage. That helped. Second is I wrote in points. I am a person who write in bullet points. I do not write in paragraphs, so it depends who is comfortable in what. So for me, the bullet points work because it made it very legible and I could put in many dimensions. Second is drawing diagrams for, as if I talk about some schemes on women. So I used to draw a diagram which would make it easier. Third is the conclusion I used to make. It was always a positive conclusion. My conclusion was always way forward with some of the other schemes, like I'll talk about women issues. Then when I end it, I say that Ministry of Women and Child Development are doing this and this, so we have a scope, we'll be doing that. But crisp. So this crispness and conciseness which was brought into my answer writing was a result of a long test series and writing practice which I did. So that is what helped me, I suppose, for the mains.
So what is your take on the writing skills, Muskan? Like you have developed over a period of time, like you started writing when you were in your graduation days, or you started just like prior to your preparation. What is your take on this?
So ma'am already covered it really comprehensively. So I'd like to add on. What I did was initially I faced a lot of issues in writing answers. I had this inertia also. I was like not willing to write answers. So what I did was I would refer to a past year question. I would read about it in detail. Then I'd write a rough answer and then I would make it a fair answer. I did this for around a month or two. And then only I became confident enough to write answer in a first go. And secondly, what I used to keep in mind was like when we read the past year question papers, there are many subparts in a question. So my practice was always to give answer to each and every subpart so that we can answer the question comprehensively. And certainly I used to make diagrams and flowcharts to make it more attractive and easier for the examiner to read. That was my strategy.
Fair enough. You very rightly said, sorry Sanjita, you're saying something.
I may add to what Muskan said, that we are always advised that you should write more and more test series, but I would always also advise all the aspirants that if you are writing more and more test series, along with it you are supposed to study as well. Take a week, take a part of the syllabus, study it very well. At least the static portion of yours should be very crystal clear. When your static is crystal clear, then only you can add the current affairs on top of it. So read about the topic and then appear exam. It's not that just for the sake of writing an answer you write and then you fill it with not very good answer and then you get poor marks and then you think what I am doing wrong. So read about it, build up your static, then add on the current affairs and then write a test. So make it
very rightly pointed out, and Muskan said, Muskan gave a wonderful strategy that first you do a rough patch of your work, then start doing, because initially what students do, they just start writing without having the knowledge. So first acquire some knowledge, I'm not saying go and become a scholar, because you can never become a scholar. So for UPSC is not asking for a scholar, it is asking for journalists. So have some knowledge and then move forward. Coming to paper 1 of GS, it is very, I think, one of the most highly covered paper, and it is very good for the sociologists like Sanjita, because social issues plays a very vital role. There was a wonderful question last year, which you have attempted, I believe, that role of women, if we are empowering the women, so how they can control the population. So what kind of dimensions you add in such kind of questions? I want to ask a social issue related question to you, Sanjita, how you, because since you are a sociology expert, sometimes your extra knowledge of social issues emerges. You have to stop, you have to put a break on your, knowledge performance. So what is your take on social issue related question in paper 1?
Actually, it comes out of practice, because when we are taught sociology, we always said write sociologically relevant answers. So that somehow creeps into GS as well. And we try to put in a lot of sociological terms and then it becomes very tough. So what I did was, when we talk about women issues, specifically the NGOs, women civil society organization issues, I used to keep a fact handy, which I can directly put in, and then talk about the problems in a general term. and then talk about the schemes and then a way forward. So I used to do not putting too much of sociological viewpoint like patriarchy, and these are very common terms, whether internalization of patriarchy and all those terms. I do not overload with sociological terms so that it stays general. So I try to do that.
Yeah, there is a very good advice you have tendered right now, that using government schemes in your answers.
Yes.
Because it will give you an edge over the other students who are not using. Muskan, let me ask you one thing about paper one specifically, because it is a wide area to cover. You have to read culture, you have to read art and culture, the history, that is modern history, then world history, then you have to read geography, and then you have to read social issues and whatnot, like concept. They may ask questions on secularism, communalism. So I think it's a very broad paper. When you prepare for prelims, you find it very difficult for doing geography. But here there is a combination of geography and history, both in a very compact, watertight manner. So do you leave something, because many students are not sometimes handy with the art and culture portion, because I remember a question they asked on the Gandhara art, and they clubbed it with Central Asian region and some Bactrian region. So that was a bouncer to many of the students. Many students came and said, what kind of question they are asking? So how is the strategy on art and culture and history especially?
So it is very unpredictable, and the syllabus is so vast, you can never be like fully prepared. But my strategy was I stick to my resources. Like, I did not go beyond the NCERTs for ancient and medieval history, and also for the art and culture I studied the 11th class fine arts NCERT very thoroughly, and most of the questions I was able to answer in the test series, and if not, I did not get disheartened, because there are always some of the answers you cannot answer. So what I used to do was, if anything related I've read already, I would make answer then and there. So it's very important that you should have that presence of mind while writing the answers, because every time you study, you'll leave something. So that is not possible to read each and everything.
Very rightly pointed out. And now coming to the paper 2, I want to ask about paper 1 also. Like, these are the questions they figured out around the combination of environment related to geography. Like, there are questions on mangrove depletion, there are questions on global warming. But then there is a separate chapter or separate syllabus for environment in paper 3. But UPSC, that's why it is called as Unpredictable Public Service Commission. They can do anything to everything. Now coming to paper 2, which is very dynamic, I must say. So what was your approach? Because suppose I give you an example, elections are going on somewhere, general election, then the role of election commission comes into the picture. So what would you advise to the students who are listening to you, that you should take notice of the present situation and go back to the conventional year and read that? Suppose at present you are seeing a lot of anti-defection related news, and every newspaper are covering. So how to go with such kind of developments to leverage some potential from these news and write down in your copy? So paper 2 related to asking this.
Paper 2, first of all, your static must be very thorough. So you know which is relevant where. So when some new issues comes to the picture, then you will be able to relate, as you said about anti-defection. So that is when you can relate which all parts, and you can add up to that answer. There was a question in GS paper 2 about Attorney General, which came in last year. So we know about it, but I could not recall the exact article which talks about Attorney General. So as you said, sometimes it's unpredictable. You will not be able to write, because Attorney General, I could not recall that it was in the news that time or not regarding anything. So it's not always that there will be something in the news which will come down, but if it comes down, you should have all the correlations that anti-defection law, parliamentary secretaries, all these things should come into the answer when you are writing. So it will come when you have a very clear understanding of the basics. So I think when that is very strong, all these things naturally flow from your deep-seated knowledge.
Now, Muskan, what do you think? Using articles and amendment in the answer, would it be more helpful, or just going with the flow, like if you are not remembering, or if you are not putting articles? What is your take on using articles and constitutional amendments and the doctrines in your answers? What is your view on this?
So it's great if we can use all those articles and amendments if we remember, but it's not every time possible to remember everything. So what we can do is, like ma'am said, we should have that basic knowledge, and that way we can connect our answer to the requirements of the question. Sometimes you may not remember, like for the Attorney General question, same went with me as well. I remembered very few things because I was not expecting in a 15-marker question. So that happened with me as well. I just wrote what I remembered. So that we have to do most of the time.
Okay. Now, one more question, which is, last year UPSC asked a question, and I'm predicting the question which is going to come for future, mains exam. Like this year, there are a lot of criticism about WHO's role. USA is putting allegation on China, and WHO is in the news. So last year, there is a question, if you remember. It is some USA's and Israel's putting out of some body, I think UNESCO. So that's why, how do you think that if some news are coming of such nature, which have a political implication of international nature, so how do students should come out? Like if some countries putting allegations, some countries defending. So as a balanced answer, Sanjita, I want to ask you and Muskan, you both. How should one write in that direction so that the answer should not look biased towards USA or towards China? If I'm putting a straight question related to WHO.
So as you rightly said, I always say that when we are preparing, we are in the process of becoming an officer. So you always have to have a neutral, balanced viewpoint. That is very, very important. So when you start writing about WHO, if you have because WHO is in the news, so you should have a background of knowing what WHO has done till date. So when you see the background, you always write that, see, WHO, what all follies it did this time. That clearly everyone, it's out in the open, so we can write it in a balanced way that this is what happened. And then again we can write that when SARS broke out, it was the same WHO which worked day in and day out and made it that it worked wonder for the world then. During Ebola also there was some negative perception. So that is how when you follow a news, you should always go back about that organization, be it UNESCO. What all things has it done? It should not be that the UNESCO issue is there right now. So I'll only focus I'll just know where it was formed, where its headquarters was, and then I write about what the issues are. No, what all things UNESCO had done earlier, so that I can relate that what UNESCO or WHO is doing wrong now and how it can be improved. So basically the thing is, when you prepare for this examination, superficial knowledge is not going to help you. Dig deep. Think about that WHO has been an organization for so many years. So if it has existed, it must have done something right, and it has done something wrong now. And how a way forward, put up a positive way forward, that we are a global nation, globalization is on rise. So this organization has to stay. So end it in that balanced way, because think big, don't think local, think big, how you can represent it in that way. So I think that will work.
Very rightly pointed out. What do you think, Muskan? Like if some organization is in news and in answers, do you find constructive criticism helping the aspirant, or it will go against him? What is your take on this?
So constructive criticism can be there, like what all is going wrong with WHO, we can list in the answer. But what is important, as ma'am also pointed out very nicely, like we need to have a way forward which is balanced. We can list that like in a positive manner, like what all can be done, and suggestions can be given. That way the answer looks balanced and the examiner gets an idea that we are not just focusing on the single side, because there are two sides to many sides, in fact, to each and every question. So that way we can answer.
Yeah, I think very
actually progressive. Everything, all answers should be such that we are showing that we are progressive. So
yes, definitely. Yes. UPSC is seeking, I think, yes, solution-oriented bureaucrats, not problem identifying bureaucrats.
Yes.
So the paper 3, which is very, I think, dynamic also and very scoring also. People are having a lot of laurels in paper 3. So unfortunately, marks are not yet out. I think more 10 to 12 days are there. Otherwise, there would have been much more clarity. Yes. But I must ask one thing, that in paper 3, there is one document or one report which you must all have to read. That is the Economic Survey of India. but it is a grand booklet. Sometimes it is one, sometimes it is two, volume 1 and volume 2. So how do you take out something relevant which you can use in your answers in paper 3 in the Economic Survey of India? Because ultimately it is the government data, and it is the genuine data rather than any other paper report or something like that. So I want to ask how you utilize, Sanjita and Muskan, the Economic Survey of India.
Personally, I really love reading Economic Survey. I have a very special liking towards it because it is a very detailed book, and many things are given in a very detailed manner. So I always follow Economic Survey, and I read a chapter and I make 1-page note out of it. So that all the main points, like I remember the 2017 Economic Survey, 2018-19 Economic Survey, which I had read. There were very specifically, it had mentioned that the meta problems India is facing is agriculture, youth and education. If I'm not employment, agriculture and education, if I'm right. So these are very opening lines. Economic Survey, I find many opening lines which can be used in your answers. That helps me a lot. Economic Survey part 2 is more about facts and figures. So I usually read the first chapter and do not go beyond. Economic Survey part 1 is something I usually read the complete one, because you get many points to add. So it's important.
What do you think on this, Muskan? Economic Survey of India's relevance in your paper 3?
It is important. Like there are many things which can be used in our answer writing from Economic Survey. So for Economic Survey, what I did was I used to refer these debates on Rajya Sabha TV related to the survey and budget also. And Yojana special edition they release about the Economic Survey, and in which the summary is covered very nicely. So I did not read the survey totally. I would refer to the summaries. Yes.
So these days we are facing the COVID-19 pandemic, and as you all know that government has used Disaster Management Act 2005 and Epidemic Diseases Act. So because this is a part of paper 3, so what is your suggestion to the future aspirants, like if such thing happens? So what they need to read out of the National Disaster Management Act or the Epidemic Diseases Act?
I haven't read the complete act. It's so vast, and there's very detailed acts for flood, cyclone. There are very specific parts. The National Disaster Management Plan has this for every. So whenever I used to prepare for any specific phenomenon, so like urban flooding, there was a problem of urban flooding last year. So there, in National Disaster Management Plan, there was a specific guidelines how to manage that. So whenever any issues used to come, so then I used to refer the CRISP notes which is available online to go for that. And Epidemic Disease Act is a very small act with 4 points, so that can be read. So depends, when it's a very big act, you can extract the points which is already available online, relevant to whatever is happening. Like urban flooding is a recurrent phenomenon, drought is a repeated phenomenon, so you can use those parts. So I think it's relevant, very relevant.
Okay, what is your view on this, Muskan? Like putting acts and some sections in your answer will help you, garner some extra marks. Do you think so?
Yes, it helps. I'd like to add upon. So there is this section in Indian Express, the explain page. Whatever relevant is going on, they usually cover. So I would cover the important acts from there. Many of the good points are covered there, and those can be used in answers in a very precise manner. That helps a lot.
I think very aptly pointed out by both the officers that the explain page in the Indian Express give you what you need to jot down in your copies. Apart from this, paper 3 has a very dynamic portion, and this year also science and technology is very important in prelims as well as in mains. So there are multiple or varied ranges of questions like science and technology related. If I remember, like question maybe come on robotics and AI, like just say a question on cyber dome. It is like a bouncer to the students. They do not understand. So how do you feel like, I mean, you write something if you are totally unaware of the question, or you leave it unattended? What is your strategy to take down such questions in which you have no knowledge completely, or very feeble knowledge, if I must say?
I usually avoid because if you write any gibberish in such a big exam, I think sometimes it gets you a very negative perception. And the question was actually on question number 10, I suppose, in 10 markers.
Yes.
So it was
Yes,
the last
yes.
lecture which I attended. So the time was running out. I was saying, thank God, the time is running out. So I wrote 2 lines and then I realized, no, Sanjita, you're not doing justice. So let's not ruin the whole paper by writing something which the examiner may not appreciate. I absolutely had no idea. Even if I had feeble idea, I would have mentioned something, but I did not have any idea about it. So I did not attend. But if you have a feeble idea, but as Muskan had said earlier, that we have to be a bit intelligent in sometimes in such kind of answers. You cannot score 60% in all the answers. There will be 7 to 8 very good answers, there will be 7 to 8 average answers, and some 3, 4 below average answers. So this one was, imagine there is a below average answer and write judiciously. Don't write gibberish. This doesn't look good. So don't do that.
Yes, I think the stratification made by you is totally correct. Now coming to one important aspect of paper 3, that is internal security. Don't you think these days it is clubbed with the international relationship also, like what is happening in the Galwan Valley region or the Depsan Plains and the whole tension between India and China? So I think what kind of attention should pay while addressing coming back to Indian neighbors. There are questions related to tension between Indo-Nepal. These days you must have read somewhere like the Kali River issues and all those stuffs. So these internal security implications have some international, fringe also. What do you think about this, Sanjita and Muskan?
So for me, these issues are used to cover from newspaper articles. Some very good articles and points are written on these issues. Also, the big picture on Rajya Sabha TV is very much helpful for such kind of issues going on internationally. They provide you opinion from the experts, and they cover almost all the dimensions like related to India or the international dimensions. From there, we can have a better understanding of the topic.
So I would like to add upon what Muskan said is, we cannot read in silos when we are dealing with the UPSC syllabus. You have to be able to relate international relations in GS2 and GS3 internal security. When you are answering in GS3, you have to put them in dimension of international relations in that as well. So you cannot miss it out that I am talking about this, so I'll miss that point. No, don't read in silos, because in GS1 there are topic about geography and environment, and it again repeats in GS3. So it will be related. And she very rightly said, when you see RSTV, that's what the government's viewpoint is. When you read on newspapers, sometimes what happens, there are certain biasness. So always take the stand of government. Because I'll just give a short example. India-Nepal issue, there was talks that Nepal tried to approach India and India did not respond back. That was on the news for a long time. But when you answer such questions, you have to put in that government stand, the MES stand, what it was. So
yes,
always put on the government stand, because when we read newspaper, it comes from various sources. So try to go to authentic sources and put in the government stand, because that is what is the official stand, and we should stick to that. Try to do that.
Yeah, I want to add one thing. Like in the newspaper, the views are personal of some scholars, so they may be biased sometimes to criticize the government. But you are asking a job from the government, so be careful, I think. And for coming to paper 4, which is I think the wonderful, I think the best paper, it is my opinion, the ethics paper. And students, there is a tendency, and I have seen many students, they do not pay much attention to it. They capitalize the knowledge of GS paper 1, 2, 3, and the other knowledge, and then they use those knowledge in the GS paper 4. So I think there are 2 sections, as we all know. One section covers the terminology related questions, and there are some questions like which is very beautifully drafted. Like last year a question came, if you remember, like non-performance of a duty by a civil servant is a form of corruption. Do you agree? What do you think such kind of questions put you in some very troublesome situation? How do you write such question? What is your approach in dealing with these questions?
What I specifically, as you said, I love GS4. My approach was always that in a single day, when I was preparing for mains, the first half was reserved for GS 1, 2, 3, second half was optional plus GS4. Every single day, 1 hour or 1.5 hours was dedicated to GS4. It was not that exam ke 1 mahine pehle I am ratifying GS4. Doesn't work that way. And ethics is a paper I personally feel is reflects what you as a person you are. It reflects your own personality, your mindset, your thinking. So that is what comes out in the paper. When you approach the question you said, it will show what you think, that actually what happens and how you will act upon that. So it's your complete mindset. No one can teach you all this. This comes with your experience, your maturity, your level of understanding. You will be working as an officer, you need to be compassionate. So this comes with the process. So it is that. I think it is that way. I don't know, Muskan has some or the other view. Please add on.
What is your opinion, Muskan?
So she said it very nicely. One thing to add, what I did was while writing answers in GS4, I would link them with personal examples. Like I took some of the major topics and I prepared examples beforehand which I could use in the exam. Because when you are writing answers, it's very difficult to think of the examples right then and there. If you have prepared something beforehand, you can use them. So I prepared some of the examples related to topics such as emotional intelligence or courage, like very prominent topics which are there in ethics, and I use them wherever possible in my answers.
I think ethics is one area where you can score maximum rather than the paper. I can find out an anecdote. There was a student with the KSG classroom program, your senior batch IS 2013 batch, I think Rachit Raj, Gujarat cadre. He scored 142 or 143, highest I think in the country till now. Nobody has broken his record. So I think Sanjita or Muskan, looking the approach of the Sanjita, like he's giving or devoting 1 hour especially for ethics, maybe he's going to break that record. My best wishes. My best wishes. Apart from this, there are certain questions which you can say like based on quotations. Like last year there was a question on the quotation by Mahatma Gandhi that a man is but a product what he thinks of his thought, what he thinks he becomes. So in this situation, there are so many thinkers. So how do you, address this issue of quotations of multiple leaders like Socrates, Gandhi, Tagore sahab? इनको कैसे किया आपने? How do you manage to? I mean, do you read about those quotations or like पढ़ते पढ़ते हो जाता है? What do you think?
No, because you said it, there are numerous such quotations, so you can never have a complete comprehensive view about it. What I used to do is get the gist. If some of the other questions, it comes many test series when we write, such as the other quotations keeps on coming. So how I write the answer is, I try to explain the gist of the question very clearly. It has to be there in the first paragraph. What is your viewpoint on that? And then add an anecdote, if you are aware of it. And if it's something which is related to a personality or very known person, so the anecdote becomes even more interesting and legitimate. So that I try to do all the time, and it is usually a 5-10 marks. So
10 marks question.
ज़्यादा नहीं लिखती अगर ज़्यादा नहीं पता तो.
Okay. What is your opinion, Muskan? How you take on this?
So I followed more or less the same strategy. In the first few lines, I would explain what the quote is actually about, and then some example or some situation attaching that, and then again in the conclusion, just a very crisp conclusion about what it wants to say. So that was my strategy.
I would suggest to my viewers that if you are preparing for paper 4, first cover the Indian thinkers like Gandhi, Tagore, Vivekananda, Kalam sahab, because ultimately the questions they are asking, maybe one foreign author they are putting, but the Indianization of authors are there. Apart from this, there are questions related to doctrines, Sanjita. You may have heard like doctrine of constitutional morality. Supreme Court in various decisions is quoting that we have to preserve the doctrine of constitutional morality. In such situation, there are doctrines, various doctrine of pith and substances, doctrine of waiver. So, do you read these doctrines separately or like during your paper 2 or in your polity preparation it was covered?
During my ethics preparation, I made a complete note of ethical terms. So I made around 10 pages. I used to see various videos and many ethical terms which kept on creeping, come up. So I used to make a note so that my final revision would be a complete revision of all that notes. So there was a crisp notes in all these things as much as I could arrange, I could comprehend and make a note of. So I made a complete note of ethical terms. So it helps. You can use those terms in your answers. I had that filter bubble and many such terms I could Bolen effect. So it helped in my answer writing. So make a note of all ethical terms. Maybe it will help.
I think these keywords are so much. And they help you in leveraging good marks.
Yes.
Apart from this, the second section, which is very dynamic because it gives you the feeling that now you are the officer, you are the district collector, now this thing has happened, how and what will be your approach to solve the issue. So in addressing the issues of case studies, what are your approach, like writing down, jotting down each and every thought process you are coming, but there is a paucity of time, as we all know, or you write on that point format that you were saying, Sanjita?
What I used to do is case studies, the standard approach, the stakeholders and what is the issue, what is the ethical dilemmas involved, and then I had written down certain specific things like some sections from CRPC. Relevant sections. I used to have a tab on that what can be implemented if a district magistrate is there, an executive magistrate is there. So some relevant sections, some relevant issues which will be mentioned. So I had a note of all that for case studies, which I could use. And I used to go for that short term, medium term and long term approach. I used to do that if the question is demanding that kind of an approach, so I would do that. And I used to write in points. I had that approach as well. And I actually, when you said, it's about my personality, if something is happening, I always used to, we in sociology have a term, empathetic listening, to stand in their own shoes and think that if I am in that position, what would have been my action. You have to think as that professional and write it down. You cannot just see through someone else's eyes and say maybe ye kar deta, wo kar deta. Nahin. It has to be professional, it has to be logical, and then you write it down. So I have always approached that kind of a way.
How you tackle case studies, Muskan?
So same for me, depending upon the question, I would start by writing the stakeholders approach or like listing down the issues which are given in the question. And for the solutions part, I would take like the middle road always, not too radical or which is not possible. A realistic solution I would seek for these case studies parts.
I think it's a good approach, Buddha's middle path. Yes, you're saying something.
Case studies were so different and there were very different kind of case studies this time. So we had never encountered such question.
Yes.
We prepared that har bari stakeholder approach nahi aayega. Somebody asked what are you? So it
yes,
time.
Definitely. Yes. Because if the next year aspirants will think now, we may get some case studies related to migrant laborers, but UPSC will ask something different. It is its nature, right? I think one more thing I must add, that if my viewers can add legislations in case studies, that will help you a lot.
Yes.
Any social legislation, if you remember, which you can put there, it will help you. Now the last part, second last part, the essay, which is I think the biggest bonanza for the students, because they can score 173 out of 250, which is probably not possible in any other stream, in GS especially. So I have two questions. One is how to select the topic in part A and part B, and what kind of dimensions are required to frame or draft a good essay so that you can, if something blunder happened in your some other people, it will, take care of that mistake. So how to select the essay first, and second is what is your approach to write down a wonderful essay, the vibrant live essay?
As I am a sociology student, my always approach was, in the first part I used to select a social issue related topic, which is usually always there, and social issue related topic has variety of dimensions. I could write economically, politically, and that all kind of dimensions I could put in. So when you see an essay, the first thing we should hit on is how many dimensions am I able to recall, that can I write about it or not. So that has to click to you, so that you can write about those dimensions. Second is what do I write, how do I write it. I had a very specific approach to that essay. I had made notes of all the topics, variety of topics, basic starting points which can be used, basic quotes which can be used, and I used to divide in a very, my starting of an essay has to be with an anecdote, I always start my essay with an anecdote. That's my approach. I had very temporal approach would be the next, how it has happened, if it is possible, and very crisp headings, so that the examiner who's checking my paper, he has an idea that what is my flow. So I always used to maintain that flow by writing headings and maintaining a flow of the essay. So we have that in mind, and starting with a rough is mandatory. Start with a rough. You should always invest at least half an hour. I always used to invest half an hour, 15 minutes to both the essays to make a rough. You should know what you're writing. Otherwise, I believe me, by the time you write an essay, first essay, second essay के बारे में कुछ नहीं याद आ रहा होगा. First, devote 15 minutes, write a complete thing. अगर लग रहा है इसमें points नहीं है, move on, make it fast. But do make a rough. It really helps.
I think moving impromptu will be detrimental to your score.
Yes.
Is it is this the same approach, Muskan, that you have followed? What Sangeeta just said?
Quite similar. Like I used to do some brainstorming before selecting. Like if I'm able to find some 10 or 20 good points which I can elaborate upon, I would list them down, and then only I would choose that specific topic. Otherwise, I'll move on to the next one before selecting. And for preparing the essays, I had listed down some of the major topics like education, poverty, and women empowerment, and I had collected data on these topics and some of the quotes related to these topics, which I could use in while writing my essays. So that was my basic approach, like 10 to 12 major topics I had listed down, and I had prepared some data bank on those topics.
I think its segregation portion is very good. Even in KSG, we provide certain topics to the students. Like these are the points, and we provide some spaces for the keywords. And there is an optional approach that Khan sir has devised, in which he tries to give optional. Suppose there is a question on women empowerment. Now you have to think the optional approach, like the anthropological, sociological, historical, economical. So that's an optional approach that Khan sir gave. It's very wonderful, I think. Now, last but not the least, the D-Day of the UPSC, that is the interview day, because I very rarely found someone who is not shivering or not very confident of just I'm going and now I'll be coming with a rank with them. So what is your take on the interview personality development test? Like usually they ask from your def, but then there are certain issues like Sangeeta is from Odisha, so there are issues related to frequent floods which is happening in there. And like tribal issues are there recently, a few years back, like if you have remember, Dongaria Khund tribe started protesting against the Niyamgiri bauxite mining case. How do you deal with the local issues? And apart from this, your subject, like what is the experience that you have observed during your personality test, and how KSG is instrumental in helping you out in that?
In my personality test preparation, I have seen what you need to be very thorough about is your own state, your own state's basic problems. At least if there will be many issues you are not aware about, but when you belong to a state, there are very basic, as we talk about Dongaria Khunds, everyone knows about it. So when they ask you, you should have a crystal clear understanding, and you should be able to project it. So what my preparation strategy was writing down as many questions as possible and answers. So keep on maintaining a question bank. So you keep on writing the question and answers. In a KSG, when I had sent my DAF, they did the exact same thing. They sent me a complete list, expected questions. And then second is when I did my mock interview over in KSG, the feedback. It was a final interview I gave. So it was my final interview before the real interview. So that feedback helped me to fine print some of the small things which I was missing out. So that helps me in improving my personality as a whole. So that helped me a lot. So, and Khan sir's videos are there on YouTube. When he asks a question and it stops, and then you give an answer. I am a person who speaks a lot. So I have always told to cut down. So that helped me to restrict my answers and be more concise and crisp. So that helped actually.
Yes, Muskan, how is your experience? How was your experience with the interview board and the questions that they put forward for you? Was it patchy or was it cordial?
My interview was very cordial. It went on really smoothly. since my name is Muskan, so it started like this only. The chairperson sir asked me like, your name is Muskan, are you still smiling? So I removed my mask and I showed him, yes sir, I'm smiling, and it ended on that note only. He again asked me before leaving like, are you still smiling? I again showed. So it was a very happy interview for me. And one thing I'd like to add, it's very important to be well read for the interview, like related to the state, your hobbies, or whatever you have mentioned in DAF, because it gives you confidence when you're entering the boardroom. Also, Khan sir has sent me this audio clip. I listened to it just before going to the boardroom. So he had listed me some of the points which I need to keep in mind. It helped me a lot to have that confidence. So it was a happy interview for me.
So congratulations to both of you from my side, and I'm glad to have a chit chat with you, which is very informative for our viewers, and I also learned a lot from you both. And my best wishes that you both get your home cadre. Let's see. It is it is the virtue of Ministry of Personnel how they will see and the state's requirement. But my best wishes that you will become a wonderful officers, because IAS is just a mean, not an end. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. At the end, all I have to say is this examination is about courage, determination, and hard work. All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. To all the aspirants who could not clear this year, I just want to request, please, please, please fight again. I would like to thank Khan sir, Anshul sir, and especially Sanjita and Muskan to be here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Thank you.